Through the generous contribution of Dr. Lewis's family, we're very fortunate to be able to share with you these timeless recordings of Dr. M. W. Lewis, a self-realized American yogi. Dr. Lewis was Paramahansa Yogananda's first American disciple and dearest personal friend. The wisdom Dr. Lewis imparts through these teachings will give you a dynamic and practical insight into the ancient science of yoga as taught by Paramahansa Yogananda. This lecture's title is How to Recognize a True Master, and was delivered in San Diego, California on May 23, 1954.
Subject this morning, how to recognize a true master. I remember when I was first starting to practice, a friend of mine, another doctor, said to me, he said, we were discussing the fact that to know things, it takes a long time to experience them, to be able to understand the true values in life. And as I remember at that time, he said, Doctor, you have to live a life to know a life. And by that time, we're used up, finished. That is, it's very difficult until you have experience to know the real values of life. And so in this subject this morning, how to recognize a true master. It does take experience, yes. There are certain fundamental things which you can understand and remember, and then recognize the real master from those who are simply self-appointed masters, as Paramahansa used to say. I'm going to start by taking a text from the Bible which deals nicely with this subject about true masters. In this particular reference in Matthew, the 23rd chapter, it was being pointed out how people like to be called master or rabbi and such things, but in reality, they are not really true teachers or true masters. And so here we read in the 5th verse, but all their works they do for to be seen of men. They make broad their phylacteries and enlarge the borders of their garments. Simply means their ego expands to good proportions. Then it goes on to say, and they love the uppermost rooms and feasts and the chief seats at the synagogue, and to be called of men rabbi. But, then Jesus says, be not ye called rabbi, for one is your master. One is your master, even Christ, and all are brethren. And call no man your father upon earth, for one is your Father, which is in heaven. Neither be ye called masters, for one is your master, even Christ. Now right there, if you will remember that in deciding about true masters, remember a true master has mastered himself, controlled his mind, his ego, the functions of his mind, and has lifted himself from outward ego consciousness into the presence of Christ within, or the Christ consciousness. Now, one who has done that and lives from that high point, he is truly a master. Remember, that's something you can always write down. Does this particular person you are following, is he simply a teacher, or is he a real man of God who has oneness with Christ within? The omniscience of God within. In the Hindu scriptures we read about King Jadava the Krishna, Jadava, who had Christ consciousness. Jesus, the great master, Jesus, the Christ. And so true masters, remember, always speak and act from the point of Christ consciousness within. A conscious presence of God within, then they are true masters. Jesus, of course, was one of the greatest masters, no doubt. And when he said many times, I say unto you, do this or do that, or this I say unto you, my words shall not pass away, the things I tell you are so, he didn't speak as Jesus, but the Christ consciousness in him was speaking. He, being a true master, spoke and acted from the Christ consciousness within. And so a master, a true master, being one with that Christ within, knows whereof he speaks. And as such he must act in an unbiased, in an unprejudiced way, with open mind. Now, one cannot act that way unless they have mastered the functions of the mind and are not controlled by ego consciousness. It's impossible to do that. And very few have mastered those outward things, as the mind, intellect, the senses, reason, inference. All those things must be done away with if you are to act truly open-mindedly from the high standpoint of Christ consciousness. Then you can help people. Then you can influence people. Then you can guide people with an unbiased, unprejudiced consciousness, having only one thing in mind, the devotee's highest good. Now, if there's any attachment to ego consciousness, likes and dislikes, you cannot do that.